Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Perpetual Chess. Listeners, we got a huge episode for you this week. So some of you may have heard, I went to the National Open in Las Vegas, did a live podcast there, was on a streamer panel, had a fantastic time. I played in the tournament too, took some buys, but played in the tournament. My results were mediocre. I lost a few rating points, but you know, the real rating points are the friends you make along the way. Had an amazing time. Would definitely recommend the tournament for anyone in the future. And we've got a bunch of people that I interviewed there, 10 different short interviews to share with you, people sharing chess advice and what their experiences were like. And I'll get you to that in a second. First, did want to cover a couple things. Number one, I got a fact wrong in episode 385 with Eugene Perlstein when we were talking about the blitz match with the Vihi Su account that turned out to be Brandon Jacobson, according to Brandon. I said it was a bullet match. It was actually a blitz match, and that's actually a pretty big mistake. It really changes how much time you have, obviously, for either thinking or any shenanigans in an online game. So I apologize. I should not really make mistakes like that. I should have been more prepared. So as for this week's pod, we've got 10 guests coming your way. Those of you on YouTube have probably figured out by now, there's no video for this podcast. And here's what we have coming. First up is, and these, by the way, are being shared, like the order of the interviews is the order in which I interviewed people over the course of this long weekend, starting Wednesday night with Ben Finegold through Sunday morning at the National Open. So first up, as we said, the aforementioned Ben Finegold, talking about his duties there. He did a lot of emceeing, and he was on the streamer panel and taught at a camp and did various other stuff. So Ben tells us what he's been up to. Then Glenn Panner, the organizer of the tournament, takes us through some of the history of the National Open and what they enjoy about that tournament. Next up, we actually have two Grandmaster Daniel Fernandezes in this pod. Pretty funny that there are only a couple cases we could think of Grandmasters with the same exact name, and two of them were at the same tournament. Daniel Fernandez from the United States was there as a coach, and he is the third guest talking about what it's like to coach at a tournament like that. Fourth up is a return guest, Kamryn Hellman. She was a fast improving college student adult who I interviewed in episode 314. Now she's got a big YouTube channel, and she was there streaming her tournament and playing as well. Following Kamryn is Kevin Scull of the Chess Journeys podcast. Always fun to chat with Kevin, who also played in the tournament. Then we have Lennart Ootes, the famed Dutch photographer, always takes amazing pictures, globetrotting all over the world, but he actually doesn't very often photograph amateur tournaments. So this was something different from him, and it was interesting to hear his perspective of like not photographing, say, Caruana for the 100th time, but instead trying to capture the emotions of amateurs. Following Lennart, we have Kyle Boddy, another return guest. He was episode 303. He runs this big baseball improvement company and other sports improvement optimization called Driveline Baseball, and also makes a lot of time for chess. He told some fun stories of lessons he has learned from working with various titled coaches. Then we have Daniel Fernandez from the United Kingdom. He actually ended up coming in tied for second in the tournament. I talked to him Sunday morning before that day. Very gracious of him when he had such a big day ahead with thousands of dollars on the line to take the time to do that interview. He talked about pushing through mental barriers and why he came all the way from the United Kingdom to Las Vegas. So shout out to Daniel. And then one you'll definitely want to hear, Grandmaster Kayden Troff was there all weekend, and his role was to stand in a room and go over amateur games. So he reviewed dozens of amateur games. So I didn't get a chance to catch up with him there, but I didn't want to miss a chance to talk to Kayden because there's so much to learn when you're just looking game after game about what kind of mistakes people typically make. And last but not least, we have ElaynahTV. She's a rising star Twitch streamer, 22,000 followers. She played in both the women's event and streamed the main chess tournament. So it's fun to hear Elaynah's perspective as well. So that's what we have coming up for you. Of course, the timestamps of the guests will be in the description. And please let me know what you think of this format. I feel like chess tournaments are so meaningful for so many people. We train so hard, we sacrifice so much, spend so much money, that I'm trying to get right how to tell the stories that people experience. I personally feel like these shorter interviews maybe help encapsulate that, but I'd like to hear your opinions if you enjoy this sort of thing. Quick conversations with a lot of people who play in a big tournament like the National Open. And last but not least, wanted to thank our sponsors, Chessable.com. As always, new courses include one by Robert Ramirez on the Stonewall. Maurice Ashley has another new course out. And of course, if you sign up for Chessable Pro, be sure to use the link in the description. So that's what we got for you. Super fun episode. It's long, so might take more than one sitting, but I think it'll be worth it. Great chess advice and stories throughout. So without further ado, let's get you to it. And we are here with the legendary streamer, YouTuber, perpetual chess, perpetual guest, Grandmaster Ben Finegold. Welcome, Ben.
Hooray, go Bens.
So Ben, you are not playing in the tournament. Most people I'm asking how they prepare for this tournament. For you, I'm guessing it's roll out of bed and put your clothes on?
Yeah, in that order. And I used to play in this tournament every year. In fact, something your listeners don't know, I've tied for first twice. But the last few years, since I'm not competitive anymore.
Yeah, it's my first day here. We're recording this on Wednesday night. I'll be playing in about an hour. While Ben enjoys himself, I'll be stressed out in the tournament hall. And I'm pretty impressed so far. So what event are you looking forward to, Ben?
Well, first I want to say 2 years ago, I brought my wife to, and when the tournament ended, she said, this is a great event. And this is different than most chess tournaments because this is a chess festival. So it's not one chess tournament. It's several chess events, and there's simuls, and there's camps, and there's streamer stuff going on, and there's a lot of different kinds of chess content that are happening at this event. And I like the fact that when I get hired, I get to do a little bit of everything.
And you don't miss playing?
No. I watch you guys suffer now.
Yeah, I mean, it has its highs and it has its lows. And I'm going to be asking everyone this, Ben. Again, your answer will probably be a little bit different than all the competitors I talk to, but what would you consider a success for this tournament?
Well, I usually know how many people to expect, and I think a success for the National Open Chess Festival is getting the chess camp this year, which I'm teaching tomorrow morning, has almost twice as many people as I remember. And I just came from the Women's Open. I was watching. One of the people in the room asked for a selfie in the room. So I got one selfie so far. I get a lot of that this tournament. And that had many more women than I remember. So I think the turnout for this event, for all the events, is going to be birds.
Yeah, I heard 1,500, and I'm sure it will go up because, again, we're recording this Wednesday night. The Open starts tonight, but then the main event, as it were, not the main event here in Las Vegas, starts tomorrow. And Ben, what do you like to do in Vegas to the extent that you have any free time from all of these events?
I've actually been here a couple of days. I've had some free time. I played poker at the Horseshoe. They're having the World Series of Poker going on right now. I'm actually coming back in 3 weeks with her. And I played in their poker room, and I played in the main event room where they're the ballroom where they're having a lot. And I was successful so far. One of the things I like about Vegas is I'm a vegan, and Vegas is very good for vegans. I mean, the word Vegas is almost the word vegan.
That's true.
Very close. And I've been to like 7 or 8 different restaurants, even one with you today, which have vegan options. And so it's easy for me to eat at restaurants here because they think about all of their customers. And as long as you don't stay outside too much, because it's going to be over 100 degrees every day, but it's very cold in the casinos, which I like. So I'm happy just staying inside and resting.
Yeah, shout out to Karen first and foremost, and yeah, I'm amazed. I mean, there's like 1,000 restaurants within like 500 feet. Although I will say, not particularly inexpensive, these restaurants.
No, and Vegas used to be very inexpensive, and then things changed a few years ago, and you just, when you come to Las Vegas, you got to spend money, and that's a vacation, and this is a working vacation for us, so we have to spend some money sometimes.
Yeah, exactly, and a good time can be had. Now, Ben, when we had lunch today, you told me a few Las Vegas-related chess player stories. I don't know if there's any that you can retell for a wider audience. Putting on the spot here.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of things going on. I'll tell you one story. There's an unnamed grandmaster who we talked about at lunch, actually. And Karen was here about a year and a half ago for the WPT in December. Nothing to do with chess.
Right.
And it was she was done for the day in a cafe or just somewhere like to get a drink. And I think she had a muffin or something. And Grandmaster came up with another international master who I don't know, and that guy's girlfriend is like, hey, Karen. And Karen didn't know the Grandmaster knew who she was. And so, like, out of context, too, at a poker tournament.
Right.
He just, they had, his friend was playing poker, the Grandmaster was hanging out with him. And so it's funny, you meet people who play poker and chess when you're at a poker or a chess tournament, and you recognize, people that do both. And in fact, we both do both. We could see each other at a poker tournament also.
Yeah. There's a ton of crossover, and I believe in one of our longer perpetual chess interviews, you mentioned when you do play poker, you get recognized fairly often.
Yeah. In fact, this event, I wasn't recognized in poker, but I was recognized once. I was walking through the casino that I was staying at earlier, and I was just walking, and somebody said Ben Finegold, and I looked, and it was like a pit boss.
Oh, funny.
He was like some guy in a suit, and he's like, oh, I love your stream. And I was like, what?
Nice.
So I've actually had that happen before, but not like when I'm just walking and the guy eat me. So that's, obviously I'm not like Hikaru or Gotham Chess or the Botez sisters, but I have a small following.
Let alone like Negriano or like Leonardo DiCaprio or...
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Or whoever.
Leo are like that. No.
And in thinking about Vegas chess history, obviously the National Open is storied, been going on for so long, and I'm so impressed already. But I was also thinking there was that World Championship match. That was the one that Halifman won, right?
Yeah, in fact, my brother and dad went to that. That didn't have a good turnout. It was a knockout event, and there were like a lot of people, and eventually. And what's funny is in 1999, I played in the U.S. Open in Reno. So I was in Nevada, but I didn't come for the World Championship, just for my own tournament.
Uh-huh. I heard a rumor that one of the people who won some money in that tournament lost a bunch playing blackjack or a similar game. Have you heard this story?
I think that happens at lots of tournaments.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the famous thing for poker players, I don't know why, is they lose all their money at craps.
Yeah.
I don't know why poker players play craps instead of other games, but it seems like if you're good at poker, you would avoid that.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough. I never got into craps, even when I was a professional poker player. And I was lucky enough to have a good amount of tournament scores, a few of them for six figures. And most of them, they just let you take your winnings, they leave you alone. But I think it was actually the World Series of Poker, where after I won the money, they're like, hey, do you want to come gamble? Do you want to come to the pits? They're like outwardly trying to corrupt you.
Right.
So hopefully they don't do that with chess winnings here.
Not winnings. The chess winnings that I got were never enough, or I could be corrupted too much.
Yeah, even first with 10,000, like, I went by the World Series of Poker last night, and the tournament going on the buy-in was 5,000.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So what else so Ben, I know you've got a Chessable course. It's supposed to be out in July, is that right?
Yeah, I just finished a course, the first part on the Nimzo-Indian, and there's a lot more to do in June and the first half of July. So I think by the end of July it'll be out, and it's for the black side. It's starting at move 3.
Excellent. Yeah, the Nimzo, I mean, so for listeners, we're going to do a longer interview when Ben's course comes out. Ben's going to make his annual appearance, but this is something Nate Solon, your fellow Michiganer, pointed out to me, the impracticality of the Nimzo for us Potzers, us tournament players. It's something I struggle with because there's just so much theory, but it's such a good opening. So you go back and
it's a repertoire course, so I'm only telling you to play one way against every move. There's many chapters, and each chapter just covers one move that white can make on move 4.
Okay.
So that way, whatever you face on move 4, I got you covered. And it's not onerous. It's going to be something that it's starting out. It's not for, you're probably a little too strong for the course. It's for like the general public and lower ranked players and club players, so they can get a handle on how to play the opening well.
Yeah, I don't know though. Like I've interviewed a few other people who did either the starting out series or stuff geared towards lower rated players, and I'm starting to feel like less is more. Like when I check out those courses for the interviews, I feel like, okay, this I can handle.
No, I agree. I don't have the Hubner style of chess analysis,
right.
or John Nunn,
right.
which is just write until your arm falls off, and then the reader's like, what is all this? I can't read all this. I try to be succinct and to give the viewer, the reader, the student what I think they need.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to that, and we will look forward to chatting again in the near future. Ben, one other question that I'm going to be asking everyone I have the pleasure of chatting with, and this one for you, since you're often the dispenser of advice, it might be one of your maxims, but my question is there any chess advice that has resonated with you recently, or are we just going to stick with the evergreen, never play F6?
I get asked a lot when I give like kids simuls and lectures to sort of beginning players, what do I do to get better? Players that are between like 100 and 600 and they want to get to 1,000. And my answer is always the same: they have to play more chess.
Yeah.
And I think when I was young, the reason I got better was I played a lot. And even though I lost a lot, I enjoyed the game anyway. And my second advice for those people is to enjoy the game regardless of the result. And if you enjoy chess and you play a lot of chess, eventually you'll get better. You have to be patient.
Okay. Well said. Yeah, probably my strategy of taking 3 to 4 buys this tournament is not optimal for my chess improvement.
Yeah, but I mean, playing 12 hours a day also isn't good either. So
yeah.
It's good to play one game a day.
Especially for us olds. Yeah, it's definitely changed the pallor of the tournament for me. I'm way more excited, especially because we're here in Vegas. So even for people who aren't like, I'm doing some media stuff as you are. So I had a good reason to take buys, but I think in a destination place like Vegas, I would encourage people to not overdo the number of games they play.
Yeah, I agree. I want to do a little bit of everything.
All right. Well, Ben, we know you got a lot of responsibilities, or at least that's the party line. So I'll let you go, and we'll pick it up in a month or two from our computers.
Okay. Thanks, Ben.
All right. Thank you, Ben.
Good luck.
Thanks. And we are here with the tournament organizer, or possibly co-organizer of the National Open, Glenn Panner. Welcome, Glenn.
Thanks, Ben. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, well, I'm having a great time here. Like, really impressed with the organization. It's only 4 rounds in, so maybe you guys will screw things up from here. But so far, so good. And the place is overrun with chess players, except for when you step outside and see all the Vegas chaos. So it's a nice blend.
Well, chess players are a little bit afraid of the light, so and the heat. So they're a bit sensitive to that. So they tend to be more indoor creatures.
Yeah, it's an interesting blend. You can kind of pick the chess players out of the crowd when you're walking near the casino. So, Glenn, let's discuss the history of this tournament a little bit. I know this is the first year at this particular venue, but could you tell us a bit about the storied history?
Well, yes, this tournament was brought back basically to life by Chicago's very own Freddie Grunberg in the early '80s when he brought this back. I believe his first events were at the defunct Imperial Palace, and Freddie, for my money, was the best organizer in the country for a very, very long time. His slogan was "Put the fun back in chess," and that spirit of it has definitely lasted to this day and hopefully beyond.
Yeah, and we have 1,700 players. I didn't see the
No,
most
I
updated count.
I wish. We're just under 1,100. I think we're somewhere around 1083, 1085. But we still have a 2-day schedule starting tomorrow, so we could see a few more.
Okay, and is that counting the Scholastic stuff?
No, that's just the main event, the National Open itself. We have another 400 and change in the Scholastic section.
Okay, so that's where I saw that number. It didn't make it up entirely.
Mm-hmm.
And this is your first year doing it like right in the middle of the Strip here at the Flamingo. How's that going so far?
It's had its challenges. We were expecting this year it to be a little bit bigger. We raised the prize fund by 25%, and we brought this to the Strip, and we're actually a little bit lower. But I think that's more date related. With the event being before many schools are out. But we're very happy with the turnout. This is still the third largest, event, the third largest National Open ever, behind last year, and I think back in the 90s when we had Karpov here was the second largest. So this was it's a great turnout, and we're hoping to make it even bigger in the coming years.
Amazing. And I've been asking everyone, and of course I'm asking people with different roles here. So for you as the organizer, like what would make the tournament a success?
Well, we have humble goals. The main thing is customer satisfaction. We want this to be the event that everyone really enjoys being here and has a lot of fun and enjoys playing. Simpler goals, for Scholastic, we don't want to lose any kids. That's kind of a humble goal, but a very important one. Those are the main thing. We just want to have people walking out of here saying, when is it next year? I'm going to be back and I'm bringing friends.
lose kids like they disappear in the desert, or lose kids like they lose interest in chess?
Well, both. I mean, one's seriously a lot more serious than the other, but you know, and that's something we talk about at all Scholastic events, that you know we want you know, we want a very safe and you know, pleasing environment for everyone.
Okay, and you're the organizer rather than the director, but as we record this, there was recently some cheating drama at the Chicago Open. Is that something that you have to worry about in your role, or do you leave that to the TDs?
Oh, absolutely. You know, that's something we during our TD meeting, we talked about the incident that happened in Chicago. We talked about how we would handle similar things, what we want to look at as a staff. You know, people are always looking for new ways to exploit the rules. So a lot of it's being vigilant. We increased our staff by probably 40% this year.
Wow. And
part of that is we want to take fair play very seriously. We take claims very seriously. To me personally, I almost worry about false claims more than actual ones, because those can be just as damaging in a different way. But you know, for the most part, that's something that we're constantly watching for. And you know, it might not be possible to catch every occurrence that happens, but we are not going to let it happen due to lack of effort.
Yeah, before the Chicago Open story, I would have said I'd be more worried about false claims than real ones, but that one was just nuts, and the guy was allegedly cheating for like a year, totally undetected. It's crazy.
Right. Yeah. You know, players are our best first line of defense against that type of thing. And, you know, our tournament directors are constantly circling the room. We are wanding people. We take it, you know, we've done a good job training our directors as well, which is a big part of it. And you hire quality people. That's a big key, and enough of them. So it's not so spread out that you know, it's impossible to catch, because you know, you're too busy just circling the wagons.
And how do you find your tournament directors?
Well, that's a great question. Some of them we find because we've worked with them for years, or they come from the areas where I'm from, Chicago. We have a nice Chicago and Midwest contingent here. Some are at tournaments like nationals, where I've worked with people from across the country, and I watch them work, and I'm like, wow, they're really good, and we'll recruit them. And some come to us and say, hey, I want to learn. And this is a big one of the things that we really try and do is mentor TDs they're up and coming, and give them the opportunity to improve. You know, it's like anything. If you don't have the opportunity to make those mistakes, you can't really expect to get better.
Yeah, you got to get the reps in. So if anyone listening is a TD and is interested, are you potentially hiring for future years?
Yeah, I mean, we're full for this year.
Right.
But, you know, feel free to reach out. And, you know, even if we can't, you know, use you this next year, we'll put you on our list. We're happy to talk to you. And you know, maybe we can find another event that one of us does that has an opening, and we're very, very glad to work with different people. We like it. We're people.
Nice. Yeah, and Glenn, you and I think, started touching base about this tournament late last year. Of course, this is June 2024. So once this is finally put to bed, you know, we're recording on Friday night, so hopefully no huge scandals or anything in the coming days. How long before you have to start thinking about the next one?
We, you know, the first day I was here, actually, we were already doing site visits and looking, you know, and talking about what we're going to do for next year. So it's a year-round process, and we take it very seriously. We want this to be the best large tournament, well, the best tournament overall in the country for players.
Okay. And Glenn, of course, anyone who becomes a tournament organizer likely has some sort of playing background. Do you compete much these days?
I'm trying to get back into it. I'm a very, very overrated 2100, so anyone listening that wants rating points, you know, I'm your target.
Yeah.
You know, luckily I have a son who's, you know, he's in college, and he is about, you know, similar strength, and so I get to learn from him now, and that's a lot of fun. I am starting to play more in over-the-board events, and hopefully I'll be featured one day on your podcast for being an adult improver.
Oh, glad to hear it. Well, let's start with this one then, Glenn, because I've been asking everyone I've chatted with if they've heard any good chess advice recently. So putting you on the spot here, but since you have been playing a bit.
Well, you know, I heard a lot of great advice this morning during the streamer panel. There's a lot given. And the main one that was repeated a few times is there's no substitution for taking those reps. You know, whether it's doing puzzles, which is to me like the batting practice of chess. You just stand in the cage and you recognize those pitches. You recognize you know how what's coming at you and those patterns, and that's a huge deal. The other thing is when you haven't played in a long time, it takes a while to get back into just being battle toughened. That's so big. You're not used to the time management because if you're playing Blitz on one of the online providers, you never have to deal with those deep thinks, and then all of a sudden you find you go from spending 15 minutes on a move to saying, wow, I need to make my next 10 moves in 3 minutes. Right. Now what do I do? It's easy to panic no matter how good a Blitz player you are. So there's no substitution for reps.
Well said. Yeah, you and I are both big baseball fans, of course. And yeah, hitting from the pitching machine is just not the same as live pitching. And doing puzzles, it helps for sure, but you've got to feel the feelings, as I like to say.
Oh, yeah.
Of the live game, for better or for worse, often for worse.
Yeah, and until you knock the rust off, it's often for worse.
Yeah, sad but true. The truth hurts, to quote one of our streamer panels. And do you have a favorite? So obviously Ben Finegold's been coming here for years, always a popular attraction. Do you have a highlight from all of the events that you guys are putting on?
Wow, I've been a part of this event and doing almost anything and everything on the staff since I was a teenager. It's my absolute favorite event. I could tell all sorts of stories. Probably some would be better not published. It'd be hard to pick just one. I love the direction we're going now. I love that we're that we're growing the way we are, and we have so many fun events. And I like that we're one of the few tournaments that really features streamers as the new celebrities and superstars of our sport, because that's the way to grow the pie. They've done such an amazing job of introducing so many new players to our game, and this is kind of the next step to welcome them in, them into the fold, have them come to our event and see what an online thing is about, and meet some of those iconic chess streamers and celebrities. It's very much a focus for us.
Yeah, and I know the streamers appreciate it as well. Well, Glenn, like I said, having a great time. I commend you so far. So hopefully, I won't publish this if something terrible happens in the next 2 days. But thanks for joining me.
Hopefully you'll be singing our praises afterwards. And we've really enjoyed having you so far. And I'm sure I'll feel like that in 2 days as well. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. My turn to knock on wood. All right. Thanks, Glenn.
Thanks. Good luck the rest of the event.
We'll be right back with more stories, interviews, and chess advice from the National Open in Las Vegas. And we are here with Grandmaster Daniel Fernandez. He is a Peruvian-born Houston. Thanks for popping in.
No, for sure. Thanks for having me, Ben.
Sure. And we are here with Grandmaster Daniel Fernandez. He is a Peruvian-born, Houston, Texas-based Grandmaster and trainer. And funny enough, there are two Grandmaster Daniel Fernandezes here, which I could only think of one other case of two Grandmasters even having the same name in chess history, which of course is Tigran Petrosian. And Daniel, I was just asking you, welcome first of all.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat. And you couldn't think of anyone else either, right?
No.
So listeners, if you can think of any other pairs of Grandmasters that had the exact same name, drop me a line. I have a feeling there might have been some Russian Grandmasters with similar names somewhere during the Soviet era. But anyway, so I ran into Daniel last night, and he was telling me that he is here as a trainer rather than a player, which first of all means it's easier to get him for an interview than all the people frantically playing. But second of all means I have to ask Daniel the age-old question. Daniel, is it more stressful to be a player or a trainer at a tournament?
Well, definitely as a player.
Okay. Some people say different.
Right. Well, these days, the trainers aren't really allowed in the tournament room, where we're just observing at a distance. So I guess it's makes it less stressful.
Okay. And who are you here coaching, Daniel?
Just several students. I go to my chess academy in Houston, at Chess Masters of Houston. Yeah. Just several kids, Simon, Kairov, Suri, several students, yeah.
Okay, and it's only been a couple rounds. How are they doing so far?
Right, so one of my students, she's playing in the U.S. Women's Tournament, and so she got off to a rough start, but okay, it's a 2-day tournament. She can fight her way back. And I have the others are doing the GM camp today, actually.
Oh, cool.
Yes, and they don't start till tomorrow. So
nice. So it sounds like a fairly relaxed schedule as far as these things go.
Yes.
Excellent. And Daniel, you recently wrote on your Facebook page, you said, I have to admit that after the adrenaline rush of playing chess for 30 years, my old man's heart still loves chess, but with the slow pace of studying and analyzing the current day gladiators. So what do you think changed for you?
Well, just the playing was very stressful. The preparation, and the games are so tense. Just one subpar move in a crucial position, and you could easily lose any advantage you've worked towards. And it's there's not much room for error in today's game. So it's nice to be able to just look from afar now.
Dude, I have to go play a game in like 20 minutes. What are you doing? What are you doing to me here?
No, enjoy the game.
So let me ask: are you like I interview a lot of people who are some stage of retired. Certainly understandable. Also, when you become a trainer, I mean, sometimes you need a break from chess. So, are you 100% retired, or like you're friends with Axel Bachman, my former coach, who's retired? Basically, he retires like Aaron Rodgers. Like retired, unretired, retired, unretired. Is it going to be like that for you?
I think so. I would say never say never.
Okay. Yeah, it's hard to completely get away. And so when you're here in a coaching capacity, do you view your role more like moral support? Is it really to extract lessons, opening prep? What's your biggest job?
Really moral support. Going over the games with the students. Telling them what they did well and what they could work on, and just letting them know it's a process, and that, I think attitude and approach is very important.
Yeah. So, and like, what were some of the lessons you learned as a player? Like, what was setbacks you had to overcome?
The toughest thing that I had to overcome as a player was bouncing back after a loss.
Yeah.
That was the toughest.
Yeah.
Yes.
Any advice or?
Oh, you just gotta keep fighting. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it's just time heals all wounds. Like what else you could do. And you mentioned on your Facebook page you're looking to put Houston chess on the map. So could you tell us a little bit more about like what the scene's been like and what you're looking to change?
Well, just we have some very competent organizers there. If we could have a few more local tournaments, that would be good. I'm very passionate about coaching. I really do enjoy what I do, and if I can help some of the students reach goals, and become more nationally recognized.
Okay. And you grew up in Peru, moved to Florida at some point, correct?
Yes, when I was 2.
Okay, and how many? That's why your English is perfect. And,
Thank you.
And how many years did you live in Florida?
For 16.
Okay.
And then when I turned 18, I went to UT Dallas, and I've stayed in Texas since. Haven't looked back.
Okay, I believe your Wikipedia page says you went to UT Brownsville.
Yes, I went to UT Dallas and then UT Brownsville.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I thought I caught them in an error, but it was you. It was you the whole time. And how do you enjoy life in Texas?
Oh, it's good. It's nice. It's laid back. It's good for me. It's good. It's good pace for me. Yeah.
Nice. And the heat doesn't bother you?
No, I'd rather be in Florida, but
okay.
Texas isn't too bad now.
Okay. And 2 questions that I'm going to be asking basically everyone that I get a chance to chat with. Your answer will probably be different than a lot of people, but what would you consider a success for this tournament for you as a coach, or whether it be away, shenanigans away from the board? What would you consider?
Me personally, just for my students to improve, grow, continue to love the game, learn from the games, and it's a career, and it's as long as they learn and get better, that for me and is the most important thing, and they enjoy themselves, and personally I'm also here enjoying myself. So.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, good big picture approach. And is there any good chess advice you heard recently that resonated with you?
Yes, actually, one of the players here that he helped me on my way to Grandmaster. He's Grandmaster Notis Delgado he's playing for Paraguay, but he's Cuban born.
Okay.
And he helped me so much really with the mental part of the game and just staying calm, and he would always tell me, relax, take deep breath.
I was going to ask about breathing exercises.
Yes. He would help me a lot on the mental aspect of the game, and also he helped me a lot also with the preparation. I was very predictable. I would play a lot of the same things over and over, and despite my doppelganger,
right.
Daniel,
yeah,
so we kind of
that's right. That's kind of a competitive advantage, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We disguise each other's other's games and moves, and we were laughing about that
right.
last night, right?
Yeah.
And so, but still, I think I was quite predictable. So I learned with him also to diversify my repertoire and play many different things. I would play E4 predictably and always made lines and things. I started to add English as black. I would, when I met the Catalan, I would play different. I'm playing closed Catalan, open,
nice,
Bogo-Indian. So just to diversify and become less predictable. Of course, it takes a lot of study to do that.
For sure. And is there like a rating level where you would say that becomes increasingly important?
Yes, I think. If you're an IM and you're trying to make that push to Grandmaster, I think that's very important.
Cool. Yeah. And last thing, so you told me this story last night and you just alluded to it. So you went up to the other Daniel Fernandez.
Yes.
I can't believe you guys are both here last night. Had you guys met previously?
Nope. That was the first time. Yeah, I was actually messing with him at the beginning. I said, I think he was playing on board 13, and I said something to the extent, are you sure you're supposed to be playing there?
Right.
Is your last name Fernandez? I said, so am I. I'm Fernandez as well. Are you Daniel? I said, yes. And then he finally pieced it together. So you're the other Daniel. So it was funny.
Yeah, I was saying that you guys should be able to do some sort of team chess or chess is exhausting, alternate rounds. They got to cut you guys some kind of break on Team Daniel Fernandez.
Yes.
All right. Well, I've actually long wanted to interview that Daniel Fernandez as well, so maybe I'll get his perspective as well. But meanwhile, Daniel, it was great to chat. Thanks for popping in.
No, for sure. Thanks for having me, Ben.
Sure. And we are here with Kamryn Hellman, who, of course, I interviewed some time ago after her astronomical chess rise. And now her YouTube channel is also rising astronomically, someone who somehow makes it all look easy. And Kamryn, welcome back, first of all.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Ben.
Sure.
Nice to meet you in person finally.
Yeah, exactly. There have been a lot of putting faces to voices here as I meet people like yourself and Kostya Kavutskiy and so many people that I've talked with but not had the chance to actually see IRL. And this is your first National Open, correct, Kamryn?
Yes, this is my first National Open, the biggest tournament I've ever played in, an exciting one.
And do you like Vegas? Are you like a Vegas person or not so much? I have a guess, by the way.
Well, I've never been to Vegas. This is my first time. It's been interesting walking around because I'm from, North Dakota, so this is a complete, 180 from anything that you see walking around downtown Bismarck. But I mean, it's been pretty fun. It's pretty overwhelming just in the crowds. I don't think I would like to, hang out here long term, but it's a fun vacation.
Yeah, it does get old, but it's a great place to visit. And despite all the chaos, when you step away from the tournament hall, they managed to keep the tournament quiet. And as we record this, you played your first game and you won, correct?
I did, yeah. So I'm still riding that high from last night, which is great.
Excellent. Yeah, good to catch you on an up note, hopefully to be continued. And Kamryn, I know you're busy with your YouTube channel, working as well. Were you able to do any prep for this tournament?
I didn't do as much as I would like to. I think in the last couple of weeks I've been doing a lot of, or I shouldn't say a lot, an amount of opening preparation, mostly just review my opening lines that I already have. My main focus in preparing tournaments has been improving my calculation skills, which I think have been kind of my weakness in like the deciding factor in me losing some of these games. In the past month or so, I've been trying to really focus on doing those harder puzzles on chess.com to really focus on that like patience and calculation when I'm actually in a tournament game.
Yeah, and for listeners who have not checked out Kamryn's YouTube channel, she went from 0 to 2,000 online in a pretty short amount of time, and shares, in addition to, as she discussed in our interview, but on her YouTube channel, just incredible advice, and for that reason, she's found a following quickly. So how did you, as someone who takes a sort of cerebral approach for how to get better at chess, how did you own in on calculation, and how did you decide what to do once you knew that that was what you wanted to focus on or felt you needed to focus on?
Yeah, it's kind of been a work in progress. I think I've probably mentioned in the past, and I made a video on it. I like to do a thing called the Why I'm Losing document, where I review my games that I lose on chess.com, my rapid games, and kind of make little bullet points about what went wrong in those games. And I think that kind of helped me, calculation being a weakness. I also like to do that even more in depth for my over-the-board games. You're spending more time on those games. Your mind is a little bit more in those positions. And that's something I found. I also ended up working a little bit with some coaches. I think primarily Nate Solon was a big factor in pushing me towards it seems like you're not even really calculating in some of these key positions at all, he said. And I was like, oh, that's yeah. That's sad, but also probably true, thinking back to my thought process. And I think, obviously chess is a game that is often just played entirely in your mind. So the thought process thing is very important. If you're not thinking at all or very far in advance, that can be detrimental. So, yeah. Yeah.
Shout out to Nate. He's always insightful. And I know that you've got Nate and Ian Harris and Omar Mills all pitching in to stream your games. First of all, it's great that they're doing that. I'm sure that people are excited to track your progress. Is this your first time streaming a tournament?
It is, yeah. So it's been quite a learning curve, but yesterday seemed to go well, so I'm hoping it will go well. I'm very happy to have those guys as commentators. I think just the little bit of the VOD I kind of scrubbed through yesterday, I think they did an amazing job. So
excellent. And I've told this story before, but when I played Dina Belenkaya after the game, she ran upstairs to join her stream and do a post-mortem. Are you doing that, or are you trying to stick to the chess while for your end?
I did do a post-mortem yesterday. It's hard here because there's so many long, winding hallways. And the way that we're placed in the playing hall as well is way up at the front. The door to get out is on the other side. So I think Ian yesterday was kind of sitting around waiting for me for a while after the game. But yeah, I do think it's important to touch base with the people who are watching, and some of them were there the entire 3-4 hours that I was playing yesterday. So just to say thank you to them, and then also just give my thought. I think is interesting as a viewer when I've seen other streamers stream their games. I really appreciate that in the end. But yeah, not doing too much with social media this weekend, just trying to stay focused and play my best chess so that in turn I can put on a good show.
Yeah, I hear you on the winding hallways. Where I was situated in the tournament, even going to the bathroom was 10 minutes.
Yeah, so. Exactly. You kind of have to bank your time a little bit.
Yeah. And let me ask you, Kamryn, so how streaming your game for the first time, how often did it cross your mind when you were sitting there trying to concentrate yesterday?
Yeah, that's a good question. At the beginning, a lot. But I do usually, especially in these longer games, I do love the 90-minute chess. It's so much nicer than I'm trying to play rapid over the board, because you have so much time to think. But as I got into it, I think I was able to focus in a little bit more and put the horse blinders on, as they say, and not really pay attention to what's going on around me. I don't get up and walk very much, so I think that helps. But yeah, when it's strange being up because they kind of have us roped off from the rest of the playing hall, and so just knowing that I'm up there and there's a lot of eyes on me and my camera's off to the side, I crossed my mind a few times, but I do try and stay focused as much as I can.
Yeah, I'm on the DGT board, and not because I'm good enough, but because they put me there. Yeah. And I'm not streaming my games, and I'm not we're recording this after I've played 2 games, and I'm not particularly proud of how I played.
Oh,
so,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's I didn't hang anything, but just one of those games where like you should have a plan, but you're just kind of shuffling your pieces. Yeah, so hopefully better things to come. But the thought that like people could see the game definitely crossed my mind while I was playing terribly. Well, just a couple more questions for you, Kamryn. Number one, I'm curious as a content creator because people, I've interviewed Finegold, of course, is here. Here but not playing, and Grandmaster Daniel Fernandez is here as a teacher, but you're actually playing. So what would you consider a success in this tournament? And that can be whether it be the actual chess or the content side. Like what's your number one goal for this tournament?
Yeah, I think just being able to stream the games for the first time in a weird like roundabout way has kind of taken my mind off the actual chess, which I think is actually good for me, because I think if I focus too much on the chess itself in the lead up, especially to the games, I get very nervous and then I don't play my best chess. So actually having that other piece of it that like, I need to worry about the stream going well, I think that's been helpful. So I'm trying to keep my focus on that. And then, because it's 90-minute, I don't get a lot of chances to play classical. So I'm just like, I'm not really focusing on results. It's more just at the board, playing the board and playing like the best moves in each game, I think is kind of my focus.
Yeah, for me, it's been a similar thing. The tournament was basically an afterthought, which may be why my results haven't been so good so far. But yeah, I'm recording a live podcast tomorrow night, and like my number one goal is don't screw up the technology on that.
Right.
Anything beyond that, this trip is gravy. And the last question I'd like to hear, you've already dispensed some good chess advice, as you always do, but I've been asking everyone if there's any good chess advice that resonated with them recently.
Gosh, it's such a good question. And I find so much of the advice on Twitter, but just as we're recording this, we just came off of this panel where we were on with a bunch of other chess streamers and content creators. And one thing that kind of kept coming up was, the advice for improvers and maybe those who are like plateauing or something is like just to have fun with it. I think people who like, find themselves at a plateau or find themselves like coming back after a long time and not enjoying chess. That was kind of like a question that was received. And I can't remember who it was. Was it GM Kayden Troff? Is that who said just enjoy the game, just have fun with it?
Yeah.
And I really resonate with that, because sometimes you get too much in the sauce and chess doesn't become fun anymore. And I think that can be really detrimental to play as well, because you're just not enjoying the game.
Yeah, fantastic advice, and it's so easy to lose track of it, and it's one of those things where it's like we know it, but can we actually embody it?
Yeah, that is the hard part. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's a game, it's a board game, and I mean, people dedicate so many hours of their life to it, but we just have to remember that it's a game, it's supposed to be fun, and if you're not having fun, I don't think you're doing it right, especially for an adult improver.
Well said. All right, well, Kamryn, excellent note to end on. Thanks for taking some time. I know you're hectic. Your schedule is super hectic, so great to catch up, and good luck in the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me on, Ben.
Thanks. And we are here with Kevin Scull, who hosts one of my favorite chess podcasts in which he interviews predominantly amateur players, hears their stories. It's, what I like about Kevin's podcast is, unlike some other chess podcasts, adult improver interviews you could name, it's not obsessed with chess improvement. There's more to life than chess improvement. People just want to enjoy themselves, find a role for chess in their lives, and Chess Journeys does an amazing job highlighting that, and Kevin is a great host, so I'm pleased to welcome Kevin. And of course I have to ask Kevin, have you played any chess today?
I have. I played 2 games. I had a fist-pumping, amazing victory this morning, and then a horrible, horrible loss just now where someone did a rook sacrifice on move 11 and then had to suffer for 20 more moves as I lost. So you're getting this sad version of me.
Yeah, I mean, losing is no fun, but I took a quick look at that game, and like, if I lose, I just want to rip the Band-Aid off. Just crush me, let me get some rest, let me recalibrate. What I don't like is those 7-hour meat grinders with the ups and downs where you snatch defeat from the jaws of victory and then just have to think about what an idiot you are for hours. I mean, you still might be thinking about what an idiot you are, but at least you got it over with quickly.
That's true. I will say, though, my opponent took 20 minutes on a move where, in my opinion, they were just clearly crushing me. And after the game, they're like, no, I think you had some stuff. And what I think is so important about that is when you're winning, you can take your time, savor it, because your opponent is just stewing in the juices of defeat, feeling worse and worse by the second. You don't need to rush anything. Slow it down.
Yeah, well, they say the most dangerous thing is a winning game. So I always take my time when I'm totally winning, because I've had those positions where you're totally winning and you screw it up. And those are some of the, as we were saying, some of the most painful. So I'm always like, been there, done that, not going to rush this. You know, I'll triple check instead of double check every variation. But I know you're disappointed about this last loss, but you had a good win this morning and you are playing up. Now, I know that you just barely got away from teaching, from your main job teaching high school, in addition to hosting chess journeys. So, A, did you know you were coming back to the National Open for a while? And B, if so, how did you prepare for it?
So I told everyone I knew I couldn't make it this year because it was the last week of school and we were all sad together. And then I was like, what if I asked for a personal day? It's the last day of school. Who's really going to miss me?
Right.
So I asked for a personal day. They shocked me and granted it. And so I made it. So I didn't know I was going to make it until maybe about a month ago is when I started thinking I might. And then it was really like Wednesday when I knew 100% that I was going.
So I'm guessing no special prep, but you've been playing in your local club anyway, right?
Yes, I did do a little special prep, but my special prep was to do a whole bunch of Puzzle Rush survival mode. And the thought was just grind as many puzzles as possible, you know, get the quick, easy patterns, and then get some of the harder puzzles to really work on that. And I will say for my Wednesday night game, it went really well, finding some cool tactics, and it seems to be working for this as well. Opening prep, you ask? None.
And yeah, that's an idea that I've heard James Canty uses a lot. Did I hear you mention that that was an inspiration for you starting on Puzzle Rush Survival?
It wasn't actually, but it probably was indirectly. It's a friend of mine, Jay Garrison.
That's who said it,
was
yeah.
just on the podcast, but he hangs out with Canty sometimes, so he might have got it from him
Yeah,
as
shout
well.
out to Jay. It was you interviewing him where I heard him mention that he's been getting into that. Maybe I'll join the cult too, but I don't know. The thing about chess tactics is, like, they're hard. You have to think, you know, whereas if you're like watching TV, for example, say, you know, NBA Finals or something, not as taxing.
That's true. That is true. Also, I have a hard time sometimes if I do too many puzzle rushes, I start to just not actually think of them as puzzles and just wing out answers. And I feel like it's really only helpful if you're doing it the right way, you know, really thinking about it, looking at your opponent's position. What I like about the Puzzle Rush Survival is that they're not timed, so there isn't that dopamine pressure of like, I have to get this as quick as possible.
Yeah, I do like that aspect. But yeah, for some of the reasons you mentioned, jokes aside, that's why I struggle to regularly repeat tactics or study, make it a part of my regimen, and I focus mainly on reviewing some openings and blitz, which is how I prepared for this tournament. Now, Kevin, we all have different objectives. It's admirable that you're playing up in this tournament, playing tougher competition. So given that, and you can answer this however you want, it might even be just get home in one piece or whatever, but what would you consider a success in this tournament?
Okay, so here's the deal. I'm not playing up. For the first time in forever, I was intending to, and it cost another $100 to play up. But I am near the bottom of the section. I'm only rated 1720. I'm in the under 1900, so I'm essentially playing up. If I can get 50%, I'll feel great. I'm 2-2 right now. That just means splitting tomorrow, and then I'll have 50%. If I'm less than that, you know, Ben, it is what it is. I've gotten to a point with my rating where when it goes up, I'm very happy. And when it goes down, I just go, I don't know what you want from me, USCF. I'm doing the best I can.
Right. All right. Glad to hear it. But you have been doing better recently, right?
I had been doing better. I got up to my new ratings high of something like 1785, but I am back down to 1720. So the roller coaster ride continues.
Yeah. It's never ending. I hear you. Well, keep your head up, and we got to practice what we preach in terms of not getting married to that stupid number. Another question I've been asking as I round up people and take them to this small room to be interviewed briefly, which I'm not used to, is what is the best chess advice you recently heard? I know you're trying not to read as many books lately, but obviously you talk a lot more chess than the average person. Anything in particular resonate with you, Kevin?
Yeah, it's really Like you said, less knowledge, more skill. That is what I've been trying to do. That means reading less books. But I will say, for some reason, I was like, I want to get that Boris Gulko Lessons from a Grandmaster to bring to Vegas. So I bought it to bring. And then I was like, I'm breaking my own advice. So I decided not to read it. But yeah, it's trying to do tactics, calculation, playing, and not reading books right now.
Oh, wow. Lessons from a Grandmaster is a fantastic book. I interviewed Dr. Joel Sneed, his collaborator, who's a very accomplished adult improver. Among other things, he talked about how he went from 1300 USCF to 2000 as an adult. But someone online on Twitter, I believe, was recently praising that book. Is that what got it in your consciousness?
I think so. I remembered your podcast interview, and then, yeah, someone on Twitter was talking about it. And it just seems like if I'm going to read a book, that's kind of what I want to do. Okay, are you ready for me to reveal my next step in my journey? I've got an idea. All the things I've gotten best at are when I got to sit with somebody better than me, and they just told me, that's wrong, that's wrong. Here's how to do it. I found a guy at my club, he's rated 2,000. He's retired. Summer break is starting, so we're going to take the next couple months, try to play as much as possible, and I'm going to get him to be as cruel as possible. Every time I make a move he doesn't like, I want him to tell me why he doesn't like it. And my hope is that that will spur something in me. Okay.
Yeah, that's great if he's willing to help. I mean, it's always nice to have sounding boards and people that will tell you the unvarnished truth. And I remembered it was Douglas Griffin, renowned chess historian, who had said, I never saw this book and it's so good. And yeah, their whole series, Lessons from a Grandmaster, is quite good. All right, so Kevin, we're recording this Saturday night. You've got 2 games to go. Is that correct? Are you not being lazy like me and actually going to play 2 games tomorrow?
Okay, you're a genius. Let's be clear. I won both my morning rounds, and I was exhausted in the afternoons and played terribly. But yes, I'm going to continue to play 2 rounds tomorrow.
Yeah, not going to lie. I'm not upset with my decision. Had a nice win this morning. Then I went to the gym and took a nap. now I'm rearing to go for tonight without a chess game in sight. So yeah, for listeners who for any multi-day tournament participants, I often advise less can be more. When it comes to how often you play. Well, I may play 2 games tomorrow. I'm still signed up for it. I have a red eye Sunday night, so I have less of an excuse than ever. But I'm going to play it by ear. I'll play at least 1, and I wish you, Kevin, luck in your 2 games tomorrow, and it was great to catch up. Any final words before we say goodbye?
My final words are good luck in your games tomorrow, and keep improving, everyone.
All right, and keep enjoying yourselves. Bye-bye.
Sure, that too.
And we are here with the renowned photographer Lennart Ootes. Lennart, of course, is a globe-trotting photographer, often taking pictures in St. Louis and at Vikensee, and he was telling me he's going to the Grand Chess Tour. It is quite a life that he leads. But Lennart, you were telling me that this is one of the first times that you're really focusing on amateur players here?
Yeah, actually, like the first time that I'm really here as a photographer at an open American tournament. I've been to Millionaire Chess before in 2014 till 16, but there I had like all kinds of technical jobs. Mm-hmm. And here I just focus on photography. I saw that there were like 1,500 players here. Most of them I've never seen before, so I wanted to see those new players and to get back a little bit into photography, and how to say that, like. I really want to motivate myself to find new angles or to spend more time just on photography. And when I take photos of only top players, it might feel the same job all over again. And at least now there's something new, and that's what I'm aiming for here.
And this tournament being in Las Vegas, is that like a benefit or a drawback for you?
I'm not really a Vegas type of person. I like to watch people.
Yeah.
So just like to walk around in a hotel, or I just walked on the strip a little bit. It's fun to watch people.
Yeah.
But I'm not really distracted that much by that.
Yeah, it's epic people watching. The only problem is it's 115 degrees Fahrenheit, so
yes.
You're like you're boiling as you watch. Yeah. So you got to keep it in small doses. And getting back to what you were saying, Lennart, about taking pictures of amateurs, like what's different about capturing amateurs, continences playing chess as compared to like taking Nakamura's picture for the 100th time?
Yeah, I think their emotions are more pure than with top players. Like just to name someone, Fabiano Caruana.
Right.
It's very hard to tell after the game if he won or lost the game. He basically has like the same face.
Right.
And at least with all these amateurs, you feel you can feel if they won or lost, and if they're exhausted or disappointed or just happy.
Yeah.
And also like during the game, there's much more expressions, and there's all kinds of like little kids here, which I of course like to take photos of. So yeah, it's very different. And with, let's say, a Grand Chess Tour or other top events, I really focus on the sporting element.
Right.
I really want to cover the story of the game or the story of the tournament. And here I can just take nice chess portraits.
Yeah, I noticed that with like even people that I'm friends with who mostly are experienced chess players but not professionals, like if you see them walking out of the tournament hall, you can always tell how they did, you know, without them telling you.
Yeah, I was even thinking about the series, maybe tomorrow, just like I want to be at the exit of the playing hall and just take photos of people just like getting
great.
out. Maybe I'll do that tomorrow.
I love it. That's a great idea. And as we're recording this on Saturday night, you just were starting to get your feet wet. There's a Blitz tournament going on. They do a few Blitz tournaments here. I know you're just getting started with that. It's the early rounds, but is there anything different about the capturing of images when the game speeds up?
Well, from a technical point, of course, it's faster. So your equipment, your camera needs to have like a faster shutter speed or those type of things. And apart from that, there's not much room to walk around. Like in a classical time control, I can just go from one game to another. And just now I was just like focused on one game for 5 minutes because it was like some kid who was very expressive. So I just stayed with that kid for 5 minutes. But then the round was over after that game was done, right? So you just have to pick your let's say your victims quite well with Blitz. And apart from that, yeah, there's even more adrenaline, I guess, with the players. So you see even more emotions.
Yeah.
So I really like that.
And Lennart, I apologize because I'm going to guess this is your most asked question, but I got to ask it since I have you here. Who is your favorite chess player to photograph?
Yeah. I have different answers to that.
Yeah, you get bored.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the style of Richard Rapport. He has a little bit of like a sad face at the board, but like he has like this long hair, and I think he looks good as a person. So there's something mysterious a little bit about him. So yeah, I would go for Richard.
Were you at the Ding Nepo World Championship, or were you not working there?
Yes, I was working there as a broadcaster, as a video broadcaster.
Okay, so was that? I know my client actually took one of the photos that went viral of like rapport with Ding Liren, like
yes, at the elevator, catching up. Yeah. It was nice. I think Mike even has like amazing photos of Ding walking in the snow outside of the hotel.
Yeah.
I don't know if he ever published it, but yeah, like it was an interesting relationship between Richard and Ding.
Yeah, and when you're taking all these pictures, like, do you develop any rooting interests? I mean, you don't have to say who your favorite player is, but do you find yourself getting sucked into the storylines? Of like who's winning a tournament, stuff like that.
So let's say that it's not like throughout the career of a player that I'm rooting for one specific player, but like when I arrive at a tournament,
right?
It might be possible that I might want to root for one specific person to do well. For example, like I hope that Ding will do well at whatever. I think he's going to play Singfield Cup.
Right.
I'm sure that I will be rooting for him, but there's not. I mean, rooting is just like a big word. I'm a chess fan myself.
Yeah.
And I'm most of all as a photographer, I'm hoping for interesting games and emotions at the board.
Okay. Yeah, that probably answers my next question. I've been asking everyone who I do these short interviews with what they would consider a success for this tournament. It sounds like you just want to capture some emotions. Is there anything beyond that?
With this specific tournament,
yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I want to regain some interest in photography. I've been doing a lot of live stream productions in the past year, and I've been spending less time with photography.
Okay.
And if I do photography, then I combine it with DGT boards.
Right.
So I do two jobs at the same time. And here I can just focus on photos and just being able to either to work faster, or to take a lot of nice photos, or to come up with something new, like a new angle or something. That's what I'm aiming for here.
Nice. And you're happy with what you've gotten so far?
I got a lot of photos. I have like just to compare, like when I'm at a top tournament, I take about 50 photos a day. I mean, I publish 50 a day, and here I publish 250 a day.
Wow.
So I'm working like a machine, you know, like editing really fast, taking a lot of photos.
And those are all on the National Open website, right?
Yeah, they're on the Facebook page and also my personal website, chessphotoshop.com.
Yeah, which I've given it a plug before. I have, as I've told you, I have a print hanging in my chest den, and definitely recommend people check out Lennart's work, his amazing photos for prints to order. And the last question, again, I've been asking everyone, even though I know you're not playing, you're a strong player, but not playing as actively right now. But have you heard any good chess advice lately, Lennart?
My advice would be to do things that you enjoy. And that could be, of course, like playing chess, but it could also be like if you enjoy studying, then you study. If you don't enjoy studying, then don't do it and just play. Yeah. And don't force yourself to do something you don't like. Yeah.
Do you see, like, of course, top players have to deal with burnout at times. You must get some like behind the scenes looks of like.
Well, I think Hikaru is a perfect example. I think he was kind of stuck.
Yeah.
Like let's say like in 2017, 18, 19, and then he took kind of a break from the big tournaments, started streaming, got more engagement with his audience, and now he's playing very well, and I think he really enjoys what he's doing.
Yeah.
And he needed that time to regain. And what I hear from top players is that they're kind of stuck with opening theory, and they don't know exactly what to do.
Yeah, I mean that's why Magnus dropped out of the World Championship, right? It's just so much work.
Yeah, and also he doesn't like the format.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, that's a big part as well. Well, Lennart, it's been great to chat. I know you're a busy man. You got pictures to take, so thanks for popping in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Sure. We'll be right back with more stories, interviews, and chess advice from the National Open in Las Vegas. And we are here with a return guest. I did an adult improver interview with this gentleman who is very accomplished away from the chessboard. He founded and runs the Driveline organization, which helps athletes improve their performance. He's got, what, like 100 employees? I don't know.
120.
120 employees. He's got a family and somehow still makes plenty of time for chess, including this tournament in the middle of baseball season. So you can hear his whole story, his whole chess story on episode 303. But Kyle, Boddy, welcome back to the pod.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, excited to chat, to catch up. So Kyle, I was pleasantly surprised to see that you were coming out here because you strike me as a busy man. So what made you decide to clear your calendar for this?
I just carved out time. Love being able to play chess in the summer. And I'm going to Boston after this for work. So it just ended up being a nice road trip.
Awesome. Yeah. So have you played in the National Open before?
No, this is my first, second big tournament.
Okay. And what are your impressions?
It's amazing how well it's run. You know, as someone who's run some events, you know, it's incredible. So it's awesome to see. They do great to the text pairing. I'm very complimentary of the tournament organizers.
Yeah, and you do some local stuff in Seattle. Yeah, they make it look easy, but it's not that easy. And correct me if I'm wrong, the other big tournament you went to was the World Open? Is that right?
No, I've gone to the Cleveland Open. Sorry, I've only traveled for two. This is the first big national tournament.
Okay, but so far so good. And I know you were in the lab doing some prep right when you got to Vegas. Were you able to do much other prep in the sort of lead up to this tournament?
Yeah. I actually took a lesson with FIDE master Nate Solon.
Shout out to Nate.
Shout out to Nate. And did some work there, and then of course continue my work with Marc Esserman, and then and I had a lesson with Calvin Blocker a while ago.
Okay, shout out to Marc Esserman too, who someday, you know, he's got these loyal fans that tell me you got to get him on Perpetual Chess, but then he doesn't answer my emails. So
I know. He keeps asking me about it. I said, no, you should go on.
Someday we'll make it happen. So anyway, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're playing up, right?
Yes, I'm one of the lowest rated people in my section.
Okay, and what would you consider a success given that context?
Based on who I've been playing, I think my expected win rate is like 2 out of 7. But going into this, I wanted to get at least 3 out of 7, and I have 2 out of 5 right now.
Okay.
So hopefully I'll hit 3 out of 7.
Yeah, I mean, people are often intimidating about playing up, but generally you get some points, and then you feel good. The pressure's off a little bit. I commend you. And bringing it back to what you mentioned about your lessons with, of course, I am Marc Esserman, friend of the pod, Nate Solon, and I am Calvin Blocker. You said you've had a story to go along with your lesson with Calvin Blocker, right?
Yeah, so Mark's much more of like a semi-private lesson, nice, and, you know, we just touch base and so forth and review Patreon and review some lines. And he said, you know, if you're in Cleveland, you have to get a real lesson with my coach, which is I am Calvin Blocker. and it was an 8-hour lesson straight. And Calvin felt he shortchanged me, so then he did a 3-hour phone lesson after the next week. And what I took most out of it, sure, I learned a lot about chess, but what I think I took most out of the work with Calvin is just how we spent over 2 hours on the sixth move in the Panoff in the Caro-Kann. So I play a sideline like 6A6, and he's like, oh, I've seen this, and you got this from an internet thing. And I was like, no, using an engine, like this is what I did, and I prepared all this. And he's like, okay, well then we have to go, and we spent 2 hours on that and didn't even finish my game. The game that I won, the Cleveland Open, like he's like, we're gonna go over this sideline that you played, and like I want to see how well you know it. And it was like amazing to see the depth of analysis you can have in that basic position.
Yeah,
you know? And that made me like, oh wow, I can really think about chess differently.
Did you end up taking notes, or like it's so long? How are you going to remember it?
Oh, I took notes. I filled up half of a small book, of notes plus moves and everything, and then he sent me a bunch of stuff to review too. It was awesome.
Oh, that's funny. So the idea of like an 8-hour lesson, to me, it's very old school. We were talking right before we recorded about how tournament games are getting a little bit shorter. Some people might want them to be shorter still. But when I was a kid, as I told Grandmaster Gregory Kaidanov when I interviewed him, my friends Jennifer and Gregory Shahadi would occasionally get lessons from him. But Gregory was based in Kentucky and they were in Philly. So, and this was I'm so old. This was pre-Zoom days. You didn't just hop on Zoom and do the lesson. So what they would do is often he would line up some lessons like in New York and then hop over to Philly and just do like a weekend in New York with some students, a weekend in Philly. So when he came to Philly, it was like 10 hours a day of nonstop chess with Greg and Jen. And obviously the results speak for themselves, and Gregory's track record as a coach does as well. But I feel like that also is one of those sort of relics of the prior era where people are like, even if you look at someone's 4 games from a tournament or something, it might take 2 hours, but to sit there for 8 hours, like, did you have something else to do that day, or like?
No, I can't, like, pencil out the entire day. I was flying out that night, and Marc, both Esserman and I have similar theories on coaching, which is like kind of stirred up a thing. I was like, semi-private coaching is, if you're not very good at chess, or baseball or whatever, like private lessons are just like, stop blundering pieces, do these, it's like, so Marc and I have those same theories on coaching, like until you're like very good, like targeted training doesn't help. But Marc's like, but I want you to take a private lesson with Calvin to see what it could be like, and see like when this can help. And that was awesome to like see that didn't change my mind entirely. Like I plan on having a lesson at least once a year with Calvin, but it's more like, I don't think repeated private stuff, but it did change my mind a little bit on just how to think about it.
Yeah,
because it wasn't about chess. I mean, Calvin just taught me how to think much deeper in things and use way more time on my clock, because both Marc and Calvin, I told Marc I spent 48 minutes on like move 9 in the Washington Open. I played my move and whatever, and then we went over it. Marc's like, yeah, you need to use more time. It's like, that wasn't enough. Like, he's like, wow. You didn't calculate enough. He's like, because if you play the right moves, then the rest of them are easy and whatever. And that kind of leads into some of the best advice he gave me.
Wow. And obviously you're known for innovation in baseball in particular, kind of changed the paradigm in how pitchers look to maximize their abilities. When you have a lesson like that, totally different domain than your primary bread and butter, do you ever pick up things that you feel like, oh, I can actually apply that to my real work?
Yeah, absolutely. And really just the depth of thought over something very basic was like, it was really centering and really humbling. It's like we can think a lot about me playing A6 and using engines and whatever, and then Calvin's like, okay, that's fine, but like, I want you to explain every possible side. Like, it was awesome. It was great.
Wow, that's cool to hear. And what's been going on with your chess generally, like, aside from this particular tournament? I haven't seen, I don't think, as many blog posts from you lately, but your fellow Seattle resident Jacob said you've still been running tournaments there. So yes. Have you still been on the grind every day? Or?
I play probably, we play for every Friday night, Seattle Chess Club, long time control. It's the no increment repeating time control. Games can go 6-7 hours. So I play in those. I've played at least 20 a year. Okay. I really, at least, and I'm trying to play more because that's been the best thing for my chess, is to think a ton and play a 6-hour game and win, lose, or draw. Like, just being able to have that much time and think about every move has been awesome. Yeah. So that's what I've been doing, studying a ton, and like coming to grips with the fact that I need to play more chess online, which I don't like. So I'm coming to grips with the fact that, like, if I'd played more chess online, I'd probably have a better result right now.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, if you said if you'd said I'm not playing 20 rated games a year, I'm playing 50, I would say maybe you don't even need to play online. Like, you can focus on extracting lessons from those games when they're not going on and do some opening work and you'll be good to go. But when it's only 20, I do think that some sort of online substitute would be good.
Yeah, but I'm playing probably 50 rated games a year, but they're not the very slow, I'm playing playing like these other games, and I'm playing like the local tournaments, but it's still not enough. Like, because I'm getting these novel positions that I'm not out of theory, but it's just like if I'd played enough rapid games, I would know the ideas better. And suddenly I'm not in time. I have to spend a lot of time in like Mon Move 13, which probably wouldn't be the case if I played more rapid. Like I would know those ideas better.
Right.
You know, so I usually find the right idea, but then it's like, and then I have 45 minutes, and my opponent has an hour and 10 minutes, and it's like that's not great.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, Kyle, to finish up, I've been asking everyone that I have the honor of chatting with if they've heard any good chess advice lately in particular. Anything from all your lessons that really resonated with you?
There's an hour-and-a-half video that Marc Esserman made free, so shout out to him. You can all get it on YouTube. It's about the World Championship. Game 6, it's the London game. Ding Liren versus Jan Nepomniachtchi.
Okay.
When Ding beats him in the London. And he scorches Jan for playing too fast and a few other things, right? But then he spends over an hour on this position when Jan doesn't take on c3. It's in the end. It's in towards the end of the game, at the end of the middle game. And he's like, if you don't take, he says, my student does this. Like, he's better explain why he doesn't do this. And he's like, I don't care that it's the engine move. He's like, it's your only shot at equality. And like the thought about like, you know, you can't make automatic moves. And the biggest piece of advice as black is I've played against the London twice, which no one plays it in Seattle, by the way.
Okay.
But like I've played against it twice, and I've drawn both games. And against way higher rated players. And he said, like, if you have black in the London, you can't fall asleep. He's like, Capablanca said when he played Aljokin, he's like, I have to learn how to play these so-called simple positions better. He's like, because Capablanca is not going to let the game get nuts, which is what Aljokin wants.
Right.
He's like, he's going to simplify, and he's like, I have to train myself to play well if I want to be the world champion. Then he did. He beat him, right? And so he's like, you can't fall asleep in the London. It's nothing for white. Who cares? And then suddenly, like, white is like slightly better, and you have no idea how this happened, right? He's like, and you can't fall asleep. He's like, solve all your problems, and then put, you know, the advice is just like, you have to solve the problems when they're there, like snuff out the issues, and then you can easily draw. And it's a 2-result game. You can draw and win against the London.
Okay.
It's like, that was really good advice. It's not just the London, right? But he's like, when you these so-called simple openings, whether it's the Collie or the London or whatever, you know, and you fall asleep, that's exactly what the white player wants.
Yeah.
Right? So that's been by far the best advice I've taken into today.
That's funny. I faced the London yesterday, and I was out of book earlier than I felt like I should have been. But I had that sort of exact thought process where there were like a few permutations where like he gets the bishop going from on the d3 to h7 diagonal, and I don't do particularly well in those positions where like I'm being attacked and my counterplay is a little slow to develop. So at some point I just decided like plugging the e4 square with knight e4. It was one of those Stonewall setups where they've gone d4 and f4.
Yep.
I'm going to put my knight on e4 and I'm going to close that diagonal. It might not be objectively best, but I'm not getting attacked.
Yep.
And it worked out. I won that game. So, yeah, being a little proactive and, you know, learning from a few prior misadventures can sometimes help. And actually, that does make me think of one more question, because I saw on your Twitter that you trashed the Jabova London after you faced it. So what do you have against the Jabova London?
It's because I play it.
Okay.
So someone was like, what's wrong with it? I was like, well, I've been known to play it.
Okay.
So I got it once straight up in the first round, which no one plays it. The Seattle Chess Club, like, I'm known for playing it. I'll play like d4, c4, but I also play that too. I played against it for the first time ever in a rated game. The guy just straight up played 2 knight c3, and I was like, all right. And then I drew that game. And then I played a guy who played like d4, bishop f4, and then he played knight c3 after I played c5, and I was like, what? Like, we've got it by transposition. So it's nothing against it. And a big reason I play it is because, like, at my rating range, it's like a lot of kids, they just play like, oh, I'll play the King's Indian or whatever, but they don't, right? They end up in a Pierce defense.
Right.
And then they're just like I played a guy and I was absolutely cooking him and I blew the end game. But I was like, oh, it was like King's Indian. He's like, I thought so. And I was like, right, yeah. So like, you just trick this guy into a position that he doesn't know.
Okay.
You know, and then like, so it's a big something. So I don't have anything against it.
Okay.
I would just like people to not play it because I play it. It's fun.
I'm glad to hear it, because I felt like it was a little bit strong. I was like, you know, there's the grandmasters who play it.
No,
so.
I play it. I have Nernitsky's course and whatever. So no, it was more of a joke than anything. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, Kyle, it's been good to catch up. We're recording this Saturday night, so I wish you luck in your last 2 games tomorrow.
Thanks, Ben.
All right, take care. And we are here with the British/Singaporean Grandmaster Daniel Fernandez. He joins me on Sunday morning. He's actually got 5.5 out of 7 points and shared second place. So big day, and I really appreciate his taking the time. Daniel, welcome. And how are you feeling about the tournament so far?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm feeling generally happy about the tournament so far. I had a number of slightly stressful moments, not just in games, but also when I got stuck in one of the hotel elevators. That was not fun. But in general, quite optimistic about today.
Good, glad to hear it. And as we record, the pairings haven't even been posted yet, but the game is in an hour, so a tense moment. And again, really appreciate you're doing this. And Daniel, you mentioned to me that this, I believe, is your second time coming to the National Open. Is that right?
Yeah, I was here last year as well.
Okay, and one of the few players coming from across the pond, even though if you look at the pairing sheet, there's a lot of players from all over the world. A lot of them are now based in the U.S., but you actually made the trip. So what brought you back?
So I had a good experience last year. I was fairly close, I think, to winning it. I played the right moves in the wrong order in the final round. So I thought I'd just give myself another shot.
Excellent. And you, other than getting stuck in an elevator, are you having an okay time away from the board?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Good. Glad to hear it. And Daniel, I know that you speak 5 languages. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you grew up in both the UK and Singapore at different times. You lived in Australia. Are you traveling a lot for chess these days as well?
Yeah, I did grow up in England and Singapore, and as an adult I lived in Australia as well. I've traveled quite a bit this last 2 years since, we can say, COVID finished. Just trying to push through some mental barriers, I guess, and see how good I was.
And how, do you mind delving into what these mental barriers are? I'm sure we can relate even if we play worse.
Yeah, so I guess at some point there's a mental barrier with being too attached to your rating or possibly your title. And yeah, I think this is a disease that can affect all sorts of chess players. You see this 4-digit number, usually 4-digit number, and it defines your self-worth in the context of this environment.
Truer words have never been spoken. Yeah. And in reviewing conversations I've had over the years, I recall Kevin Go-Wing Ming mentioning you as someone who had a similar struggle. He's someone I interviewed and obviously has this famous story of his epic journey to the Grandmaster title. You guys both have Singaporean roots. And he mentioned that you were someone that also had to push hard to get the 2500 level. What was that experience like?
So I didn't have quite as epic a journey as he did. It's obviously a completely different kettle of fish to try and get your GM title in your 30s or later. I got my last norm, well, I got my second norm in 2015, and then I was struggling for 2 years to get my final one and the rating. So that was a journey, but something I don't think too much about now.
Okay. And what's your study regimen now, as you mentioned, both doing sort of psychological work to try to disengage from rating attachment, but also just trying to get better at chess?
So my highest priority in terms of training is actually physical training. I don't want to sound too arrogant. I think I have the brain structure required for the next jump that I want to make in chess, but physically speaking, I'm not quite there, and I'm getting tired at round 7 and not sleeping well during tournaments and just generally feeling sluggish. So there's some powerlifting, there's some running, there's stuff like that I think is going to help me.
That's interesting to hear and totally makes sense to me. Now, when European players come to the U.S., they're often sort of shocked, both that at some tournaments you have to bring your own chess sets, you know, and the sort of relentless schedule of 2 games a day. Is that something that is an adjustment for you?
Yeah, I think an adjustment for me is the sheer number of juniors that are playing in these tournaments, sometimes at quite high levels, 2200, 2300, some IMs as well. And they obviously have the physical capability to take on those double round days better than a lot of adults. And I think that's something I obviously need to work on. But also at the same time, double round days are common in Australia, where I was for a few years. And so it's not that big a problem.
Oh, that's good to hear. And as you say, since you're making physical conditioning a priority anyway, maybe that helps a bit. Now, Daniel, I've been asking everyone that I interview, that I do these quick interviews with, what they would consider a success in this tournament. What was your objective going in?
So I actually didn't have an objective for this tournament. I think I started as seed number 12 or 13, and so there weren't any particular expectations. And I think going into the last day in such a favorable position, it's a challenge to not have those expectations as well, because when you have those expectations, it tends not to go well. Yeah,
and you said again, the pairings aren't out, but you think you might get black against one of the top seeds, right? Yeah. So, well, certainly we'll be rooting for you. Another thing I've been asking everyone, and you've already given some great advice, the importance of physical training comes up fairly frequently, more and more frequently in chess, I feel like. But is there any chess advice you've heard recently that particularly resonated with you? Or if you have like stock advice, your favorite chess tip.
My favorite chess tip. Little bit off guard there. I would say it's important for everyone to decide what chess means to them. Because I see a lot of players, 14, 15, 16, and they go, I want to be a professional player. And my thinking is, no, you don't. I can't tell them that.
Right.
So I think each person goes through this evolution of deciding, how much they want to get better, how much it's for them, how much it's for money, how much, for the slight fame that chess could offer you. And just balancing those motivations and coming to a consensus in your mind. I know a lot of people who, for example, they got to the IM title and they decided that was enough.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to have that mental clarity to think, yeah, I've got what I need out of this game.
Okay. And are you doing chess work full time right now?
So I'm coaching, playing, writing chess, but I'm also teaching mathematics in North London.
Okay.
As a tutor, not in a school. And I do some web design.
Okay. And do you enjoy the non-chess work?
I do, yeah.
That's good. And do you feel like it helps keep you a bit more grounded chess-wise?
Yeah, it definitely does.
Okay. And I was reviewing your Facebook page, and it looked like you moved back to the UK in 2022. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
From Australia. And how is life? How is it to be back home, back in London?
It felt very different at first. I felt the UK had changed, and generally not in a good way, between 2019 when I left and 2022 when I came back right at the end. That was an impression that I more or less got in the first month, and then after that I forgot about it. So I feel comfortable. I'm at home. It's my country. Things are great. Glad
to hear it. And just so you mentioned physical training, but to the extent that you are working on chess, which I'm sure you are, between your training responsibilities and your own game, is it opening work, calculation work, all of the above, game review? What do you prioritize when you sit down to work on your own game?
So I prioritize analyzing my own games, because when I became a Grandmaster in 2017, I had many years, or three or 4 years at the least, of not analyzing my own games at all, and so I had this sort of wealth of relatively high-level experience that I wasn't drawing the lessons from, and sometimes I was making the same mistake again, and it was just frustrating. So I analyze both the games that I'm playing, contemporaneously, and also some of the backlog, as it were, and trying to get the lessons from that. And then I also do some tactics training each day.
Okay, good to hear. Yeah, good to have the daily practice. And then Daniel, I think this is my last question. As I mentioned to you when we were chatting briefly yesterday, I got the chance to interview the other Grandmaster, Daniel Fernandez. It's a funny story that you guys finally got to meet. And I apologize for putting you on the spot here, but I can't help but ask, because I asked Daniel and then I asked Grandmaster Ben Finegold. Once I realized that you guys were both here, I was trying to think of Grandmasters who share the same first and last name. And I was able to come up with one other one besides yourself and Grandmaster Daniel Fernandez. Does anyone come to mind for you?
Oh, I feel like there's a pair of Ivanovs.
Yeah.
Is that what you came up with?
No, I came up with Tigran Petrosian.
Okay. So I think there's 2 Vladimir Ivanov Grandmasters.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that.
Okay.
I feel like I've met two of them.
Okay, yeah, and I didn't prep Daniel for that at all. And again, invite listeners if you can think of anyone, whether it's current or from history. But it's certainly a funny coincidence. And Daniel mentioned that sometimes he felt like opponents looked up the openings of the other Daniel Fernandez. Have you ever had any direct experiences with that, where someone tells you they prepped for the other Daniel Fernandez, as it turns out?
Yeah, it definitely has happened. I feel like recently. Well, I don't feel like, but I noticed recently ChessBase made a change where if you type in Fernandez D in the online database, it defaults to me. So I think people are getting me more often than they're getting him.
Okay.
At least these days.
Okay, so it favors him more than it favors you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Daniel, I know you've got a big game coming up. Wish you best of luck today, and thank you for taking the time for this interview.
Thank you.
I am pleased to be joined today by a Grandmaster trainer, former World Youth Champion. He is now streaming as Chesssharkz along with his compatriot Tony Padron, who I also had the pleasure of meeting in Las Vegas. Welcome to Grandmaster Kayden Troff.
Thank you so much. It is a pleasure. I know you were busy in Vegas and I was busy, and hey, but we make it work, right?
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time after driving home today. And you were one I couldn't let get away, Kayden, because you had a unique role at the National Open. You did not play in the tournament. Could you reveal what you were primarily doing there?
Yeah, so I was there doing game analysis. 2 hours after each round started, I would go, I'd set up, I'd be ready to go, and anyone could just come, bring their game, and we would go through it. I'd ask them different questions, what they were thinking, and give my own hopefully helpful suggestions on what they could have done better. And yeah, it was just a really good time.
Yeah, I'm sure you were helpful, and they were putting you to work. Every time I walked by that room, you were grinding.
Yeah, there were a few people I was trying to keep kind of in my memory, is because when it hits, so I go for 2 hours, and there are people that still are there and want their game. I'm like, okay, guys, I would love to go forever, but I gotta eat. So try and make a mental note of, okay, this person was so close, like I'll make sure to get to him next time and stuff. So they kept me busy.
Yeah, and the reason that I really wanted to talk to you in particular is because, like, we all want to get better at chess, and it just occurred to me that, and everyone, 95 at least % of the people listening are amateurs like myself, and it occurred to me that you've got this unique role in just looking at game after game. So, how many games do you think you looked at over these past few days? How many amateur games?
So let's see, it was 7 sessions. I think I averaged like 7 to 8. Per session. So I mean, it was a lot. It was, I'm spacing my math, but 50 plus,
and covering a decently wide rating range, I'm guessing.
I had people that were in the under 1200 come and bringing games, and people up to the under 2300. I didn't really have too many from the open, but that's fair. GMs, I don't think they're probably looking for my feedback too much, but although very wide range.
People like me were in the open, and I could have definitely used some of your feedback. So, so that's on me. But let's get to what you learned. So, what did you notice? What was deciding all of these amateur games?
So there were a few things that really stood out to me, and I'll go through them as they come to me. But one of the big things that I found as like a common thread is people would get into these good positions. They'd have maybe a slight advantage, a little bit better structure, a little bit better pieces. And then when it came time for the destructive blow, their opponent messes up and it's time for them to strike, a lot of times that was missing. And it was something I told a few people, and then I found myself saying, probably 10 times to different people, like, you just needed a little more oomph in this game. Like, it was so good. You just needed that little more oomph. And it was after about 5 that it hit me like, wait a second, like, is this just a common thread? And it's like, yeah, obviously, like, I'm not just saying the same thing because it's fun. Like, I had specific moments where they could have put a little bit more pressure on their opponent, where they could have gone after them. That would have made a big difference in these games. And really something that I think for a lot of people, it is that balance of, I know I'm supposed to improve my position and I'm supposed to attack, but whereas the positional and tactical come together, and being able to identify that moment is tough.
Well said. When I was getting lessons, and I'm like 2100, but my coach used to tell me the same thing. Like, there does come a moment where you have to go for the jugular. And it's actually come up, I've been doing this podcast for many years, and it's come up before that I think with adults in particular, as we get older, we become more risk averse. So I think it becomes a little harder for us to sacrifice or to really like let it fly, even when we know we have an advantage. And is this something you saw kind of across the rating spectrum, Kayden?
Yeah, I would definitely say for all ratings, it was something that I found myself giving advice or finding moments where that little extra oomph would have made a huge difference.
Mm-hmm. And do you think there was any, I guess it would be hard for you to judge this, but maybe based on what people said, like, it occurs to me there might be some selection bias in what people showed you. Like, did you see more wins than losses? Did people say, I'm not going to show you such and such game because I just blundered? Like, what were the interactions like?
Yeah, I would say I definitely saw more wins. Where there were a few people that were like very, and most of the people that I would say showed losses were very direct, like very specific with it. Like I had a couple of people that said, "Hey, I have other games, but I played this maybe in round 2 or round 1. I lost it, and I want to know how I could have avoided losing." So there was definitely some people that were like, "Hey, I lost. I didn't want to lose. Like, what could I have done differently?" But a lot more that I would say leaned towards the, "Hey, here's a cool win."
Yeah, I think that's human nature. And part of it also might be not just like that they want to show off, but that sometimes if you just lost a game and you're there, obviously, right when the round ends, like even if you're eventually going to look at it, it's like you need a minute to recover, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you want to take your mind off of it. You don't want to go and hear from a GM like, "Yeah, you lost. This is why you lost." You're like, "I know why I lost. I know I could have done better." Like, just forget
And
about it for a second.
and when you look at people's games, do you ask their rating or do you try to go in cold? How did you approach that?
Most of the time, I could kind of see because they'd give me their score sheets to play through the games, and so they have the sections written. But I would say, from my side, I wasn't too like it depended on the game, but I try not to get too wrapped up in the ratings of the players. Like I keep it in mind, but I want to say like, "Hey, this is advice I would give to anyone." I might cater it a little bit because of your rating, but good chess is good chess, whatever the rating.
Okay.
Um, and so let's go through, let's talk about it. Let's have kind of that honest conversation. Maybe I'll be a little nicer if, you're lower rated, but I'm still there to give the best advice I can.
Okay. And how tiring is it compared to like playing a game, sitting there analyzing nonstop for hours?
It gets pretty tiring. I feel like I was doing very well until the last day, and then the last day, because I was also in charge of the Freddie prize, the 14 and under best game prize that they gave, super cool prize, and they wanted me to be the judge of the games and have the young players go submit their games to me, and so I did game analysis. And then I went and like was putting in any games that, last minute submissions and looking through them and trying to evaluate them. And so I did all that. And amongst other things, got to that last analysis session. And I was feeling it. I felt like I had played into the tournament and I was reaching that last round where I just have to give everything I possibly still have in the tank. And I was... let's just say I was drinking some caffeine to get me there.
Totally makes sense, as is often the case late in those tournaments. And before we get to a couple other things, so I feel like it's already one bit of actionable advice in terms of like players needing to be more aggressive when they have the edge. Anything else that stood out? Any other recurring patterns from the games?
I would say, as like a general note, be specific. Because I'm going through this game, I'll ask people, "Okay, why did you do this?" And we all know in chess the idea of seeing ghosts, seeing something that we're afraid of but doesn't really exist. And I would say it connects to that, but it also just connects to your general plan. Like if you want to achieve something, you want to go attack something, you want to maneuver a piece, you want to avoid double pawns, whatever it is, a lot of people have this tendency to say, "Oh, I just want to avoid it. Oh, I just want to achieve it." And it's like, but why? What's the actual benefit? How is that bringing you closer to your goal of checkmate? And the amount of people that when I would ask that, like, "Hey, give me a little bit more," they're like, "I don't like what you're asking. I don't like that you're questioning me a little bit."
Right.
But you do have a point. Like I avoided these doubled pawns, but in doing so, I made a lot of concessions. Okay, I see what you're saying. And
That's
different
funny.
examples like that.
Yeah, and I've noticed also like there can be an aversion to calculating, and people will just kind of try to explain what they did based on principle. And I'm not saying I'm innocent of it by any means, but yeah, another common amateur mistake for sure.
Yeah.
And Kayden, last but not least, so we shared a panel together, the streamer panel, where you got to talk about what you and Tony were doing. You guys told some funny stories that we probably can't get into. I mean, the panel's going to be online, so I'll link to it and encourage people to watch it. But could you generally describe like the multimedia work that you and your Chesssharkz compatriot Tony are doing?
Yeah, so I think it's, I don't know, when it comes to multimedia, the big thing for us is definitely grinding those hours as far as streaming on Twitch. So we put a lot of effort into that. We try and do 40 hours a week between the two of us, but pretty often we're on together. And we're trying to post some clips and shorts from that, and interacting with our community and Discord, and so it's just trying to keep touch with everything in the content and the community. And I would say, especially for us, that our community, like we care about a lot. The Vegas was so much fun because we got to meet people from around the country, or maybe even out of the states, that has watched us, has interacted with us, but actually meeting in person, having that connection. So yeah, we're trying to put in the grind and do all the things, and then just try and keep touch with the community and build those relationships, because they support us, and it means a ton.
Awesome. Good to hear. And then the very last thing. So on this panel, Ben Finegold mentioned this game that Kayden played in the World Youth Under 14. He was black against another young talent named Vorontsov. And Ben's like, this is the best game ever. So I said I was going to go look at it, and I went and looked at it. And all I can say, man, is rookie 2. Unbelievable.
Yeah. It was...
Sorry, I'm late to the party.
Oh, that is a game that I hold very dear, because I mean, I wouldn't have taken first in the World Youth in the championship without that game, without that move, without the combination. And Ben Finegold, I honestly was just super flattered by how much he talked about it, and how high praise he gave it. But yeah, it was one of those that I think really emphasized to me that when push comes to shove, you have to do it, right? My opponent played something that looked really scary, and I was kind of shaking a little bit, but you just have to grind and give it the best you can. And for me, that turned out really well.
Modern Engine approved. It's the only move in that position.
Yeah.
And let me ask you, so when I went looking for that game, I didn't search YouTube. So I'm more of I'll just play through the moves guy. Are there many video recaps on that? Do you know?
Yeah, there are a few that I've seen. I know Ben Finegold, speaking of, did a more recent one.
Yeah.
And I know a couple other people at least did one not too soon after. So yeah, it was it was.
So I'll link to the game score and
great,
to a video recap for listeners. You got to check out this game. And Queen F6 was a nice final move too.
Yeah. Cherry on top.
For sure. All right. Well, Kayden, I know you've had a hectic few days, so I want to thank you for taking the time. And it was great to meet you out in Vegas. And hope we cross paths. Hope we cross paths again.
Yeah, of course. No, it was great meeting you, and thank you. Hope I was nice enough. And good luck.
We'll be right back with more stories, interviews, and chess advice from the National Open in Las Vegas. And we are here with Elaynah, who is a rising star Twitch streamer. She's got 22,000 followers, and she is fresh back from Vegas. She played in the women's event, played in and streamed the Open tournament as well, so over 10 rated games. She's the co-host of the new Chess Lounge podcast with Dylan Quercia, and I am pleased to welcome her to the program. Welcome, Elaynah.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So you were just telling me, Elaynah, that you're recovering from Vegas, but not the way that most people have to recover from Vegas. You had to recover from some intensive chess.
Yeah, exactly. I was not expecting it to take so long to recover, but you know what? I think the time shifts, people don't think much about it. A lot of times, it's 3 hours, right? You're 3 hours ahead in New York, and those 3 hours make a significant difference, I think, in recovering, because you get back and then all of a sudden you have to readjust your sleep as well, on top of recover from playing a ton of games and not getting a lot of sleep either, because you're in Vegas and you're playing in a huge chess tournament.
Yeah, I've been sluggish this week as well, and I only played a handful of rated games, so I can definitely relate. Well, let's take it from the beginning of your trip, Elaynah. So you played in the women's event, but took a couple buys, right?
I did, yeah, because I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't want to play all these games and then play all the National Open games too. Because I definitely started to feel it too. It was pretty grueling.
And I know that you were streaming your National Open games. Did you stream your games from the women's tournament as well?
I did, yeah.
How did that go for you, both the streaming and the chess?
Well, the women's tournament was, the way I view it, it was more of a disaster, in my opinion. My first game, it was actually against the WFM, and it was going extremely well. She had like 1 minute on the clock, and I had 15, and it was like an equal position. So, I was like, dang, I think I could win this, and then I blundered my rook, so that was really bad. I think I don't know, the pressure of her having low time somehow got to me too. It's really weird. It's very psychological both ways if you're low on time and if your opponent is low on time. And then the second game, I was so tired. I was just blundering, and I'm like, I don't want to like calculate. It seems like too much effort. And she like played B3 against the Sicilian, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm not gonna do this. Like, I gotta calculate this.
Just walk out of the room.
Literally.
Just done.
I forfeit. No, I'm out.
Right. That's funny. That's brutal. And how were the vibes at the women's tournament? Any different than the Open?
I mean, it was a bit more chill just because there was much less people, but overall the same, I would say.
And did you stream those games as well?
I did, yeah.
So when you're thinking about just leaving the room when she plays B3, I guess that had to factor into the calculus.
Yeah, exactly.
And you stayed.
I stayed. Unfortunately, I shouldn't have.
Okay, and then you played the National Open without buys, correct?
Yeah, without buys, because what ended up happening was I was going to take some buys once I lost, and then I won 4 games in a row. And so I was in line for, first, second, third, or I think they were giving prizes up to 9th place. And so I lost my 5th game, and I'm like, okay, there's still a chance, right? I'm still 4 points. And then I played the other 2, and I lost those 2. So, yeah, unfortunate.
Okay, but still gained a bunch of rating in the under 1500 section. And this was your second National Open, but also like you've only been playing tournament chess for less than 2 years, correct?
I actually started just a year ago. The chess festival last year was my first tournament.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you feel like you're making good progress? Because I certainly do.
I think so, yeah. No, definitely. It's still hard to lose, to be honest. Like, it really did suck losing at the National Open, especially after you're on a winning streak and you're like, wow, maybe I could get like, a prize or something like that, like first, second, or third place. Maybe it's possible. But I do think that I did make good progress, and it's also important, I think, for me to realize that there are people who've been playing for a long time there who are very experienced. So I think that made it a little difficult for me playing as some people because they knew their theory so well too, especially for openings, which opening theory I'm still a little bit iffy on.
Yeah, it takes time, and you're just hitting the level where it starts to become a bit more important. So,
Right.
but and it's intimidating in the meantime. And I've been asking Elaynah, most people that will be on this pod I interviewed like at some point during the tournament. You are one of a couple people I'm catching up with after. So I've been asking people what they would consider a success, but yours is over. So I guess it makes more sense to just ask, do you consider the trip a success?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that the games that I played, in this tournament or these tournaments, they were huge successes. I've learned a lot from them, and I was analyzing them with Quercia as well as we were going. So that was super helpful. And plus, there were a ton of masters there. So some of them did like look at the games too, and I got some really valuable feedback. But I think that the games were kind of secondary. I think that the trip overall was a success because there were so many amazing people this year. Last year there was much less like content creators there. This year there were a ton more. So they did an amazing job, like really bringing in, people who are, basically just people who are a part of chess, and how do I say this? I don't know. I'm tired. But anyways, I was gonna say podcasters, streamers, YouTubers, people who just kind of put out chess content.
Yeah, and in terms of, so you said you got to look at the games with a lot of stronger players. So were there any like actionable chess lessons you learned from this trip?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is one that really stuck out to me, and it was my 5th game at the National Open, and it's the one that I lost. I messed up the opening, so I didn't really know my opening theory because I started playing, like, I think it's called the Marachi Bind against,
Oh, that's the game I saw a bit of.
yeah, against the Sicilian, I believe, and I didn't know it very well. And I remember at some point, you know, I had to play d4 for a pawn break, and I like messed up the order, and then I ended up playing it with the idea of just sacrificing a pawn and trying to gain compensation for it, even though I didn't really know what I was doing, because I didn't know how else to like basically pawn break, I guess, without losing a pawn like at that point. And I remember we were reviewing that game, and there was actually a way, right? And it was just really like a matter of bringing your knight back and like bringing it, you know, or moving it like twice and just putting on a square that can defend it, you know, d4 again. I didn't really think about that. Like, you know, sometimes I'll miss those like moves that seem kind of simple, but they're really actually difficult to find, where you're like, you know, moving multiple pieces back, or I don't know. And for some reason that just stuck out. I think just like knowing that there are ways there, I didn't have to sacrifice that pawn. I could have really just tried to, you know, like look for other ways.
Yeah, those maneuvering games definitely take some getting used to. And
Yeah, exactly. So I think that really just like stuck out to me more than anything.
Okay, so get in the lab on the Marachi Bind. Although the thing is, like, so this was, you were white, right, against the Sicilian?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to face it that often, so that's part of the problem. But the other thing is, like, you've got a space advantage in it, so at least you're kind of, even if you feel like you don't have a plan, it's like it's not supposed to be that good for black. As someone who lost on the black side of a Marachi in this
The
tournament.
crazy thing is, I was down 2 pawns and I managed to equalize the position. So I came back completely, but then I messed up the endgame. So
Yeah.
I was like, how do I come back from this? And, you know, I did come back from it somehow. Like, I really held on. I'm like, nah, the game isn't over. I'm going to keep going and figure out ways to, like, gain compensation. And I did. And then I made, like, one bad move in the end game and just lost the whole position. So
Yeah, it happens.
yeah.
All right, well, Elaynah, just a couple more questions because this is going to be at the end of a whole series of interviews.
Right.
Number one, if you don't mind, could you tell the story about the accident that happened in one of your games? Do you know what I'm alluding to?
Because, okay, so we had an accident with basically me moving the piece twice. And so what happened was that the game was basically already over because I think I won a rook at this point, and it was like in the end game. And so it was my opponent's turn, and I made a move and I forgot to hit the clock. And then so she, you know, it was her turn, and then she had to, you know, make a move. And then she gets up for like I think the 10th time. And I thought that she moved because she got up to go get like water or something. And I like look at the clock, I'm like, oh, you know, it's my turn. But then I look at the board and I'm like, something seems off. Like the position seems exactly the same. But then I'm like, but she got up, and like it also says, the clock says that it's like my turn, you know, like it's on my time. And so I make a second move, and she comes back and she's like looking at the position. She's like, can I like, you know, see your score sheet? And I'm like, sure. And then she's like looking at it, and then she's like, what move did I make before this move? And I'm just like, I don't know. I thought it was King B7. And then so like she's just like looking at it, and then all of a sudden like one of the organizers shows up because we're just like confused. And then they pause the clock, and then they're looking at our notations, and I messed up my notations by the end of it, and I'm like, you're not gonna get anything out of this. Like, I keep messing up the order, you know? I keep putting, like, my move for the wrong color. I don't know why I do that, but anyways. And so they're, like, confused, and they're like, these score sheets don't make any sense. So they, like, go back and check the DGT board. And, yeah, it turns out I made a move twice because I thought that it was my turn, because the clock was on my time and she got up. And so it was like this whole little thing.
So funny. But yeah, those
Yeah.
situations are confusing. And why was your clock still running?
Because I keep forgetting to click the clock.
Yeah.
Like, I've gotten
Takes-
better about it, but last year I lost one of my games because I forgot to press it for like 15 minutes, and this was the unrated section. So it was like 25-5 or something like that. And so it was really bad, but I've gotten so much better, but I'm still not perfect with it. Like, I still sometimes just forget about the clock completely. But yeah, it's nice that we had the DHT board, because I think that it would have just been a disaster since both our notations didn't really make any sense.
Right. Yeah. It takes getting used to for sure. My advice, Elaynah, is like do something like keep a lid on your pen and put the lid on your pen after every move, so that when you have to take the lid off, it'll serve as a reminder to check to make sure
Oh, that's smart.
that you have hit the clock. But I'm sure you'll also just naturally get better. I know it's a transition. Like, I know you're doing a lot of online stuff, and yeah, the OTB customs take getting used to. Last question, Elaynah. So now you're back home, going to get back to streaming. You have anything else special planned in the coming months?
Yeah, so what I'm mainly working on right now is streaming in different chess clubs here in New York City, just because there's so many different clubs here, and I think that it would be so cool to, kind of also bring casual chess, to viewers online, because yeah, we have like tournaments and we have just online playing, I guess, like on chess.com, but I think that this concept could be interesting. I definitely want to try it. I don't know how it's gonna go, but I think that in a way it's cool, because there's just so many different clubs here in New York City with so many different people, like really cool people, and so I thought that it might be a lot of fun to stream that.
Yeah, you got to cover some of those bar nights.
I
been
do. I
Yeah,
do. I mean, they get wild.
I
So
bet. Yeah,
yeah.
probably more wild than the chess tournament in Vegas was, at least.
I know,
from,
right?
from
I'm
my
sure. I'm sure. Yeah, no, but I mean, like one of the chess clubs I went to, it's in Manhattan. It's in this little bar, but it's crazy loud. So it does get very wild. So you just have these chess boards and this really, really, really loud music in general. Like, I don't know. Apparently people go there for the DJ though, but then I don't know, you have like these chess boards. But so it's really interesting, like the whole environment, like playing chess when you can't hear yourself or anything,
Right.
and it's like actually hurting your ears is something else. I don't know if I'd be able to stream that, but we'll
All
see.
right, only one way to find out.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right, well, Elaynah, I know you're still recovering, so I appreciate your taking the time for the trip report. Congrats on a successful tournament, and thanks for popping in.
Thank you. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Okay, take care.
Take care.